Hello everyone, my name is Mira Thompson and I'm a singer and researcher on the topics of disability and disability justice in the arts. Before I start with the practicalities of the talk, I will give you a quick visual description to provide some access for the visually impaired and blind people. So I am a white person sitting in my living room with a white background with sort of a tapestry hanging on the wall. I am wearing a black dress. I have long hair, very long hair, in a dark color, I would say brownish. And I have green eyes and I'm wearing a copper colored necklace. I also want to thank Jort and Jorinde for making this video option a possibility. It's a bit complicated for me to be there in person with you today due to winter viruses floating around in crowded spaces, so I'm filming this from my comfortable and safe living room. In my ongoing research, I engage with the meanings and interpretations assigned to disabled bodies within both public and private spaces. This exploration is not only an academic endeavor, it is deeply informed by my personal experiences and the experiences of fellow disabled people. My approach extends beyond the personal and looks at it through political, psychological, and philosophical frameworks. Looking at these perspectives, my research aims to examine the intricacies of visibility/invisibility disabled people are faced with on a daily basis. By analyzing the position of the observer and the observed, I seek to contribute to a deeper understanding of how disabled bodies are positioned within societal discourses and how these dynamics inform broader conversations about liberation, dignity, and representation. I aspire to foster a more nuanced outlook on disability as a lived experience, challenging reductive interpretations. For this talk, I want to dive into the potential the art world offers when thinking about access and aesthetics. Integrating this viewpoint might give us a new and possibly richer frame of reference, and a different aesthetic may emerge. Because contemporary art provides an experimental space, it is also possible to think about how the existing power structures and dynamics are questioned and viewed. So, where to start when there is virtually no language available for this other way of looking, thinking, and creating? When I'm referring to language here, I don't mean that language itself is insufficient. I don't believe in such a thing because we have to use the words that are available to us. But I find that we fail and fall short when we talk about disabled bodies and the ambiguities that come at play here. In preparation for this talk, I remembered that Virginia Woolf already spoke about this in her 1925 essay on being ill. In this essay, Woolf reflects on the personal implications of illness, but also the societal ones. I will read the opening paragraph. Also keep in mind that I'm using illness and disability kind of as a synonym here, even though I know obviously they are not. Quote, "Considering how common illness is, how tremendous the spiritual change that it brings, how astonishing when the lights of health go down, the undiscovered countries that are then discovered, what wastes and deserts of the soul a slight attack of influenza brings to light. What precipices and lawns sprinkled with bright flowers a little rise of temperature reveals. What ancient and obdurate oaks are rooted in us in the act of sickness. How we go down into the pit of death and feel the water of annihilation close above our heads, and wake thinking to find ourselves in the presence of the angels and the harpers when we have a tooth out and come to surface in the dentist's armchair and confuse his rinse the mouth with the greeting of the deity stooping from the floor of heaven to welcome us. When we think of this and infinitely more, as we are so frequently forced to think of it, it becomes strange indeed that illness has not taken its place with love, battle, and jealousy among the prime themes of literature. End quote. For as long as I can recall, I've been trying to find this absent language Woolf is referring to, but no words satisfied my desire to echo the complex and messy reality that being disabled is. Though I greatly admire a lot of disabled activists, their words also didn't seem to fully cut it. Often they portrayed a sunny, happy-go-lucky type of activism, or on the contrary, a very dark one. Without diminishing or downplaying these approaches, they did not resonate with the ambivalence I felt towards my body and the inaccessibility of the world. In my efforts to bridge this gap, I turned to the work of disabled scholars in the field of critical disability studies. Their writings have frequently provided a more nuanced framework through which to examine the intersections of disability, identity, and societal structures. However, I found that even these academic texts sometimes didn't satisfy me. In her book Disability: A Liberation, Flemish writer Anaïs van Ertvelde describes her frustration on how disability is simplified in language. She says, and in Dutch that would be, praat jezelf het begrijpbare in, and it would be loosely translated to talk yourself into the understandable or digestible. So, as you can hear, I am not the only one longing for this language. Many of us, maybe even many of us in this room here, are making efforts to add to this not yet or barely existing language through their creative practice, albeit with words, visuals, or sound. So for this talk, I would like to introduce or reintroduce you to 3 disabled artists and collectives that for me succeeded in this language making. First, I want to start with a British artist, Martin O'Brien. Martin O'Brien was born with a life-limiting disease, cystic fibrosis, and was confronted with his own mortality as soon as he became aware of his illness. When he was only 8 years old, his cousin, who had the same illness as he, died at the age of 12. Now, in his 30s, O'Brien lived longer than expected, and from this experience, he created the idea of zombie life and zombie time, the temporal experience of living longer than expected, in order to understand the presence of death as a way of life. Zombie time provides a framework for understanding evolving relationships with mortality. In his childhood and early adulthood, he experienced time as a march towards an inevitable death date, and his performance piece, The Last Breath Society, was supposed to be performed in March 2020, but it was postponed due to the pandemic. This is relevant information because it made him realize the work should be changed. His initial idea was an installation with 9 coffins and recordings of his cough being played out of them. Because the symbol coughing had new significance during the pandemic and was more universal and pressing, it opened up conversation about mortality through art with the public. The cultural meaning of coughing, a sound he himself is so familiar with, had changed because of the pandemic. A sound that accompanies O'Brien every day, the sound of coughing, but also the movement and visceral response to that sound is now transferred, made into an artwork. Cystic fibrosis patients are used to social distancing too. Their risk of infection means that they cannot come close to other cystic fibrosis patients in case they carry a different type of virus or bacteria and thereby cross-contaminating each other. O'Brien says about his work, quote, "Performance is the space that I can be sick in the way that I want to be. Medicine is keeping me alive and it's amazing, but I have to give full control to the doctor so I can continue living. Illness and its treatment strip you of agency, and it feels like art is the place, maybe the only place, where you can regain agency over your body." The second collective that I want to discuss is Since Invalid. Since Invalid is, and I will quote from their website, a disability justice-based movement, building and performance project that celebrates disabled people, centering and led by disabled Black, Indigenous, and people of the global majority, and queer, trans, and non-binary disabled people. Their performances, produced and created by disabled people and their peers, only work with an embodied approach, finding and even changing ways we look at particularly performance art, working with image description and language interpreters, thereby not showing more accessible ways, or not only showing more accessible ways to approach an artwork, but also transforming these accessibility tools into art itself. This does not only result in sort of freeing performances, but it also changes the whole idea of who makes art, who is allowed to be on the stage. And in their performances, they often utilize the feeling of shame, the feeling of being a burden to society and to the people around them. In a documentary about the collective, co-founder Patty Byrne says, quote, "We are reorienting the gaze. We're determining what and how we're being perceived." End quote. Since Invalid is a grassroots organization that aims to bridge activism, art, and disability justice. Their disability justice principles are always central in their creations and their way of working. I will also read them out loud for you as they're stated on their website. It's quite a long list. 1. Intersectionality. "We do not live single-issue lives," which is a quote from Audre Lorde. Ableism coupled with white supremacy, supported by capitalism, underscored by heteropatriarchy, had rendered the vast majority of the world invalid. 2. Leadership of those most impacted. "We are led by those who most know these systems," which is also a quote from Aurora Levins Morales. 3. We have anti-capitalist politic. "In an economy that sees land and humans as components of profit, we are anti-capitalist by the nature of having non-conforming body minds." 4. Commitment to cross-movement organizing, shifting how social justice movements understand disability and contextualize ableism. Disability justice lends itself to politics of alliance. 5. Recognizing wholeness. People have inherent worth outside of community relations and capitalist notions of productivity. Each person is full of history and life experience. 6. Sustainability. We pace ourselves individually and collectively to be sustained long term. Our embodied experiences guide us towards ongoing justice and liberation. 7, commitment to cross-disability solidarity. We honor the insights and participations of all of our community members, knowing that isolation undermines collective liberation. 8, interdependence. We meet each other's needs as we build toward liberation, knowing that state solutions inevitably extend into further control over lives. 9, collective/access. As brown, black, and queer-bodied disabled people, we bring flexibility and creative nuance that go beyond able-bodied/minded normativity to be in community with each other. 10, collective liberation. No body or mind can be left behind. Only moving together can we accomplish the revolution we require. So that is a whole mouthful. The last artist that I want to discuss is Panteha Abareshi. They highlight a growing awareness among non-disabled individuals about the complexities surrounding disability and illness. Their work reflects a shift in societal consciousness, where non-disabled people are beginning to confront the implications of body politics, something disabled individuals navigate daily. For instance, during the pandemic, many experienced isolation and vulnerability for the first time, prompting them to emphasize with the struggles faced by disabled communities. By inviting this understanding, Abareshi fosters a dialogue that bridges the gap between experiences of the able-bodied and disabled individuals, urging a collective reflection on bodily politics. Often using medical or medicalized objects in their work, we see an installation here. I will put an image up. An installation consisting of medical objects, pipettes, tubes, and grabbers connected to plastic houses. The tubes go in through the window, the chimney, a house where in principle anyone could live, a house where no one sees you. On the plastic houses are the names of medications, an indicator that something is going on in that house. Through the tubes, the houses are also connected, forming a cyclic connection between them, while also being an enclosed installation, so nothing from the outside can enter or go out. So it goes both ways. By presenting you these 3 artists, or actually 2 artists and a collective, I could have chosen many more. I hope to have given you some ideas on how this missing language is created and will continue to be formed. A lack of language might also be accompanied by a lack of a conclusive ending, so I want to close off with Woolf's words again. Quote, "In illness, words seem to possess a mystic quality. We grasp what is beyond their surface meaning, gather instinctively this, that, and the other, a sound, a color, here a stress, there a pause, which the poet, knowing words to be meager in comparison with ideas, has strewn about this page to evoke, when collected, a state of mind which neither words can express nor the reason explain."